tell nobody, 30 boy died for me. I ain't gonna tell nobody what 30 boy died for me. Took my roller cause when I know I was broke as I could be. From Will Dockery, Willie Brown's about your job. They run me from Will Dockery, Willie Brown's about your job. Buddy, what's the matter? And when I told Papa Charlie, I don't want you hanging around my job anymore. Further down in the country, it will always make you cry. Further down in the country, further down will make you cry. My God, oh, women and children flogging freight trains for a ride. That was 34 Blues by Charley Patton. We're trudging along and continuing with our lessons on Charley Patton's work in standard tuning. This is all in conjunction with my new Charley Patton ebook ebook release, Charley Patton Songs in Standard Tuning, covering 14 songs, 14 of his most famous songs done in standard tuning across 99 pages. So a link to this ebook is available now at my website store at www.deltalutmusic.com. Check out the information settings that are tied with this video in order to see more. So again, thank you again for continuing watching and subscribing and following me as on this journey. It's been exciting working on Charley Patton's music. I've learned a lot in the process. So, in order to begin, what we need here to start working on 34 Blues, I always recommend a regular acoustic guitar. In playing folk music, you want to put away the electric guitar. I like to, again, utilize plastic finger picks because my fingers are not so strong. Definitely a thumb pick, if anything. I have index and middle finger picks to help me along there. The other thing that you want to have is a capo. This is really important. If you wanted to go back and listen to Charley Patton, he's never going to play in E standard tuning. He's always going to be at a different pitch. So with 34 Blues, the capo is going to hover over the first fret if you wanted to play along with him there. So that's something to keep in mind. If you don't have a capo, definitely get one, because you don't want to be tuning your strings up because you're going to break your strings, right? So moving along, as a prerequisite to watching any of my lessons, I always talk about the discipline of the right hand, the finger style techniques, the alternating finger style patterns. If you haven't already, check out my beginning finger style guitar volumes 1 through 4. It's an intense breakdown on how to finger pick. But like always, I always try to kind of paraphrase, summarize what you should do with the right hand. So again, you want to have this motion with the hand, the outer lining of the palm of your hand rest about the strings here, atop the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings, right? The thumb juts out and is going to be positioned over the 5th string, like this. Your index and middle finger are going to be responsible for picking the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings. Okay, so the thumb is responsible for the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings, the bass strings, and your index and middle finger are responsible for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings, the treble strings. And then when you work them in conjunction together, you produce this kind of looping motion, the finger style patterns, where it's a combination of pinches together, the thumb having the playing the alternating bass line. So definitely important to get down pat. All right. So 34 Blues from this repertoire of music is tuned a little bit differently from the other songs. So as I promised in all of these Charley Patton lessons, we won't play with the capo on to generate confusion. So as always, we're tuned as standard E tuning, right? Like you would any regular guitar. However, 34 Blues is actually tuned a semitone up from E standard tuning. So whereas normally your guitar would be tuned, the top string would be E, well now you're going to tune your top string to an E plus, a semitone up from E. So you're basically in between E and F. So if you had a tuner, naturally the tuner, the dial would be right in the center. Well, you have to now tune it where it's positioned all the way to the right. So 450 Hertz. It's going to now be tuned this way. So in order to follow along, you'll tune up with me because I have it tuned at this semitone position. So this is my top string, which is going to be an E plus. Go ahead and tune on your end. This is my fifth string, which is going to be an A plus. This is my fourth string, which is going to be a D plus. My third string is a G plus. My second string a B plus. And then finally my bottom string, which is an E plus. So go ahead and play a C chord. So now we have instated the semitone pitch, and if you were to follow along, listen to the original recording, you'll take the capo and position it over the first fret. So now it's going to be a standard F plus tuning instead of a standard E plus tuning. And for some reason, Patton is tuned this way. And once you have it locked in, you'll be right in tune. Nothing will be off if you wanted to go back and play along. But that's something that I wanted to stress from the beginning. But for our learning purposes, we're not going to use the capo. We're just going to be in E plus tuning. So 34 Blues is a song that's played this time in the key of C. So we've talked about the key of E already, the key of F with Hanging on the Wall. So now we're looking at the key of C blues. Patton didn't really play much in the key of C in terms of standard tuning. I already made a lesson up for Poor Me, which is also done in standard tuning. A lot of the things stated in Poor Me show up in this song as well, although 34 Blues is way more complicated. So we are in the key of C, meaning you'll have the presence of the C chord, the G chord is going to come into play, and then Patton uses unnamed chords, which I have transposed them as 9 chords. He has these strange 9 chords that appear in the song. And that's something we'll go over with. So we've got everything ready to go. I highly recommend that you get access to this ebook because this is what I use to follow along. It has very clear and laid out tablature broken down for each part of the song, the introduction, the verses, the conclusion. You have beautiful chord diagrams, and you have the complete lyrics with also additional like commentary that's happening for each part. So this is broken down that so much that it's intended for the beginner, the absolute newbie to learn this music. All right, so let's take a little break and we will look at the introduction and the verse. All right, so moving along here, we're going to be looking at the introduction, which is really simple, and then we'll also look at the verse, which is also pretty simple in its own right. So the introduction starts off like this. verse goes like this. I ain't got nobody, 34 and die for me. Alright, so the introduction is basically, is pretty straightforward. It's soft strums of the C chord, a loose fade in with the C major chord, right? So to do that though, the first strike of the chord in these series of strums, you'll finger a C chord, but the middle finger, instead of being on the 5th string 3rd fret, is going to jump up to the 6th string 3rd fret. Instead of this, it's like this. So that's what it's like this suspension chord coming into the measure. So that's the first thing that he does. And then this finger on the top, the 6th string, comes down to the 5th string, and then you just play the bass note here on the 5th string 3rd fret. You play that once, and then it's followed up by a bunch of strums of the C major chord like you would regular. So when you put it together, the first 3 notes in this sequence start off like this. You play this C chord with the 6th string being played. 1, 2, 3. So it's that chord, bass note, and then regular C chord strums. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the C chord becomes less frequent at the end of that measure. They turn into quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like a loose series of strums. So we've got that knocked out of the way. And here in the first verse, which is going to repeat across all of the other stanzas, it's very easy. He's playing a run on the bottom string over the 8th, 6th, and 3rd frets. And your index finger is going to be picking up these strings. And I also would emphasize stamping your feet. If you're on a hardwood floor, stamp your feet on the offbeat. So the first verse sounds like this. I ain't gonna tell nobody, 34 and die for me. And when you're doing that, he leads in first with kind of 8 strums of the bottom string on the 8th fret, and the index finger is picking that up. So there's 8 notes on that. And when he leads into it, he says the words I ain't is a pause. So he says, I ain't going to tell nobody. When he says the word gonna, he already starts playing the notes. So when you lead into this measure, it's I ain't. You say that first, and then you roll in with the music. And the part ain't gonna tell nobody is you play like this. I ain't gonna tell nobody. Ain't gonna tell. And then on the offbeat with the foot, you want to do it on the offbeat. I ain't gonna tell nobody. I ain't gonna tell nobody. And then you will now shift over to the 6th fret bottom string. And this is where the part where he says, what 34 have done for me. 34 had done. 34 had done. So these are like a combination of 6 notes here on the bottom 6th fret. So it's moving from 8th fret, 6th fret. Being on the 8th fret is a little bit longer. I ain't gonna tell nobody. 34 had done. 34, and when he says 34, he's already moved to the 6th fret. And then when you end the words for me, he's already now playing the bottom string 3rd fret. So when you put it all together, it's I ain't gonna tell nobody 34 had done for me, and he just plays that once. So pretty straightforward. When you put the introduction and this verse together, I ain't gonna tell nobody 34 had done for me. Somewhere, when you play this 3rd fret bottom string, it's somewhere in between the words for and me. And it's a loose application of that. Alright, so next, after this first, the verse, he follows all of these verses with a sort of lick constructed out of the C major scale. And it's a common lick used throughout music written for the key of C through various artists. So this run, melodic run on the 1st fret, is followed up by this quick lick, and it sounds like this. And this is probably going to be the most challenging part of it, because you have to pick out the individual strings, jump between strings to get this melody right. So I'll play it one more time. But it's the signature lick that appears in the song, and he reverts to it all the time. So this lick is it consists altogether of 6 notes. 6 notes. The first note, the thumb is going to come down, and you're going to play the 2nd string on the 4th fret along with the bottom string open. So it's this pairing of 2 notes. This is like a Blind Lemon Jefferson. Like a typical Blind Lemon Jefferson lick, right? So he plays, that's the first note. You play that with the thumb. And then the next note, you're going to shift this all the way to the 1st fret 2nd string, and also play the bottom string open as a pairing as well. So it's 1, 2. And I'm playing that with the thumb. So it's 1, 2. And now the next note, the thumb is going to come and it's going to play the open 3rd string. And that's going to be hard to transition from this so it's 1, 2, 3, the open 3rd string. And then you will play the 3rd fret 4th string with the thumb as the next note in the sequence. So the first 4 notes are 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the 5th note, you're going to come down and the index finger is going to pop the 2nd string on the 1st fret. And then the 6th string, the 6th note in the sequence, will just resolve on the 5th string, 3rd fret to close out that lick. So when you put all the 6 notes together, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is going to be the difficult part, is you're jumping in between strings. It took me a few tries to discipline and put the memory in the fingers to jump between strings. But again, these are the 6 notes. I'll play it really slow this time. those are the 6 notes, and that's going to take a little bit of practice, but the tablature has it nicely laid out. So I definitely highly recommend you check that out. Right? So he executes this lick, right? So that 6th note is then followed up by the top string 3rd fret. All right, so then the 7 notes from the beginning are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's playing the root of a C major chord, going from the 5th string 3rd fret to the 6th string 3rd fret. Right? 1, 2, and then the other half of this lick, he will just round it out with strums of the C major chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So kind of when you put it together, this is how it will appear. So the second part of this riff is, this is where I have it here in the ebook. I have it circled. The timing, the transition from this is so key. It's the most important thing happening that's bridging the 2 measures. But in a way, it resets the timing of the song. So and I'll highlight it as I play it, both parts again. 1, 2, 3. It's this happening. That is the most important feature to appear out of this song. You have to get the timing right in that. I can't stress it enough. So when he leads into these C strums, he's leading into this. After you play the top string on the 3rd fret, he then comes down and briefly plays the 5th string on the 3rd fret, followed by all these strums in C. So to highlight that, I'll play it all together. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's so crucial. And this is going to take, this part especially is going to take a few times, but once you get it down pat, it will reappear across the remaining stanzas, and it will be more simple as you go. All right. So now let's take a little break, and now we're going to go over the strange 4 position on the song where he's using 9 chords. All right, so moving along in the song, we covered this portion from before. All right, so now he's going to lead into these very Charley Patton-esque chords. And this is the portion of the song where he goes, I ain't gonna tell nobody what any boy done for me. Right? And the way that I have these transposed, I call them unnamed chords. But I think they're closely related to the family of 9 chords. And they appear as an F9 and a D sharp 9. So you're looking at 2 chords here. So I guess if you've watched my Poor Me lesson, I talk about those chords there. They appear there as well. There's even 2 more 9 chords that follow along in Poor Me Blues. But to play these unique 9 chords, we're going to first start with the F9 chord. So what you'll basically do is you'll finger a C chord, like a regular C major chord, and then the pinky is now going to come and play the bottom string is bottom string. So here on the C major chord, I'm on the 3rd fret. The ring and the pinky finger are all going to be on the same fret. So it's a C9 chord, right? So you have this fingering happening, except that now you're going to shift all the way down to the 6th, 7th, and 8th frets. And it's going to sound like this. So to put it into perspective, now my ring finger is on the 8th fret, 5th string. My pinky is on the 8th fret, bottom string. My middle finger is now on the 7th fret, 4th string. And my index finger is on the 2nd string, 6th fret. These beautiful chords. Very unique to Patton's playing. So he plays this chord in the part where he's saying, "I'm gonna tell nobody." So it's just like a series of like an 8th note strum. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can chop it up, play it loosely with upstrokes. "I'm gonna tell nobody." And then he shifts over, maintaining the same fingering, and now he shifts over to the 4th, 5th, and 6th frets, playing the D sharp 9 chord at a less frequent stance. So these are the 2 chords happening in the 4 position. "I'm gonna tell nobody, 34 had done for me." Alright, so as he transitions from these chords, "I ain't gonna tell nobody." I play, to lead into that next chord, I play the 5th and 4th strings together, the root of this D sharp 9 chord first. Play that first, then follow it up with strums. Kind of what we were doing with the C major chord earlier on. So it's "I ain't gonna tell nobody." Lead in with these bass notes. "What 34 had done." I also lead in with the bass note here. You resolve this all on the C major chord. When he says, "For me." So in the performance at the beginning of the video, I incorporate the percussive elements that are happening. I brushed upon this briefly and hang it on the wall, where Charley is doing something like this. So I think he's doing some sort of percussive element in this song, and that's optional for you if you want to do that. So you can just get by on just regular strums of this, but in between the chord transition from this F9 to the D sharp 9, I have it laid out in the tablature as under the 2 palm muted strums to happen in the transition of these 2 chords. So I'll play it out like this. "I'm gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me. I ain't gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me." So in the part where you're hitting the guitar, it's just with the index and middle finger, you're knocking on the guitar in that part. "I ain't gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me." Alright, so that's one way you can get around this percussiveness. Or you can do just a more crazy, like what I did in the performance. I'll play it one more time. "I'm gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me. I ain't gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me." So what I'm doing here is I'm actually kind of dribbling. I'm playing the D sharp 9 chord and it's like you're dribbling a little basketball. That's also another interpretation of implementing the percussive thing. I do it just to give the song a little edge. It's not necessarily what Patton's doing exactly, but I like to incorporate some of these percussive elements to change it up. That's what made Patton such a unique guitar player, to say the least. But yeah, those are the 9 chords happening in the 4 position, right? So when you lead this, I ain't gonna tell nobody what 34 done for me. So when he plays this, he reverts back to this lick that we talked about earlier. And it just goes back. So he always reverts back to this lick to close out basically the 1 chord and the 4 chord position. Always comes back to cap off. So that's what he's doing there. And again, this resetting of the timing is so pivotal, which happens in this lick. There is where it resets. Alright, so let's take a little break, and now we're going to go over the 5 chord position where the G or the G7 chord comes into play. And yeah, we'll just take it from there. Alright, so now we'll look at the 5 chord position of the song. This is where the G or the G7 chords come into play. And it's in the portion where it goes like this. Took my roller when I rolled up. Took my roller when I rolled up. Took my roller when I rolled up. I was broke as I could be. Alright, so we'll look at that real quick. It's pretty easy. It's a really nifty folk bass run based in G, which makes this such a folksy tune. So the portion where he says, took my roller when I rolled up, you have this leading bass run. Right, so it consists of 5 notes, all being played with the thumb. The first note of that is going to feature on the 5th string 3rd fret. Then you're going to pop down with the index finger on the left hand. You're going to play this chromatic run happening on the 4th string, starting at the 2nd fret. 4th string, 2nd fret. Then 3rd fret, 4th string. Then 4th fret, 4th string. So you play the 5th string, then the chromatic run. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that 5th note is going to be the open 3rd string, that G note. Took my roller, took my roller. Right? So there's 5 notes, and while that 3rd string is being played open, he comes in and plays a G chord followed by a G7 chord. 2 quick strums of the G and G7 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Took my roller when I rolled up. Took my roller when I rolled up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that G7 chord is gonna ring over like a whole note rest. Took my roller when I rolled up. So that's that 5 chord position, and then there's going to be a big noticeable pause while this G7 chord is ringing out over a whole note rest, and then he will finish it up with this portion, which you can barely hear in the original recording, but it sounds like this. I was broke as I could be. I was broke as I could be. When you put it together, it'll sound like this. Took my roller when I rose up. I was broke as I could be. And and that's what we'll talk about here. The percussive, the stamping your foot on the offbeat is going to be like a built-in metronome for you. Always stamp your feet when you're playing here. But here is definitely a noticeable pause. I'll go over this again, which covers the pause. I was broke as I could be. And then this portion, broke as I could be. He's playing it really, you could barely hear it in the original recording, the musical parts. His voice is carrying over, dominating this portion of the song. But it's highlighted by this noticeable pause. And so in the lyrics, I was broke as I could be, you start to play the notes in this part at the word broke. I was broke as I could be. And what he's doing here, these notes being played, are again coming back to these pairings happening on the second and first strings, which we covered in the earlier lick in the C major scale. So he plays the second string 4th fret paired with the bottom string open. And he plays that about 3 or 4 times. I was broke as I. And in the word could, he shifts over again to the second string 1st fret. Could. And then the word be, the middle finger comes up in the left hand and plays the 3rd string on the 2nd fret. I was broke as I could be. And then you resolve that whole sequence on the 1st fret, 2nd string, and the bottom string. So it's like a very loose application of these notes. So in all, it's somewhere around 6-7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was broke as I could be. Broke as I could be. Broke as I could be. Could be. So there's like really 2 parts of this. The all happening on the 4th fret. 1, 2, 3 as the first part, and then the other part. Going from the 1st to the 2nd fret. So that's that portion there. When I rolled out, I was broke as I could be. But it's not played as loudly. That portion, the voice is carrying it over there, right? So we've covered that, and then it's followed up by a different lick happening on the C major scale. It sounds like this. That's what happens next. And that's what we'll cover next is the outro, the conclusion to these stanzas are characterized by two distinctive licks happening on the C major scale, and they are difficult. So let's take a little break and we'll follow up with that. All right, so recapping where we last left off, we talked about this. Took my road when I looked up. I was broke as I could be. I was broke as I could be. All right, and then this is followed up by 2 distinctive licks happening on the C major scale, which appear like this. Again, I'll play it one more time. So So those are the two distinctive scales, or at least licks, melodic licks happening in the C major scale. So the first lick is even more difficult than the previous lick that we talked about, because there's more jumping of the strings. And this lick is constructed of about 9 notes. 9 notes. There's 2 parts happening here. So the first part, let's take a look at the first 5 notes happening here. Now it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As the first part. And what he's doing here is, again, he's playing this 4th fret, 2nd string, and the bottom string open together, this pairing. He plays that as the first note, then the index finger plays the bottom string open right away. 1, 2, then the index finger on the right hand comes and plays the 2nd string on the 1st fret. Followed right away, the next note is going to be the 2nd fret 3rd string. And then you're going to come off of that and play the 3rd string open. So the 5 notes appear like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And notice what I'm doing with the right hand. I'm picking out all these strings with the index finger. That's going to be the challenge here. It's going to take you a few tries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the other half of this lick sounds like this. And those 4 notes, you could either play with the thumb or the index finger on the right hand. It will sound like this. You'll play the 4th fret 3rd string. The 3rd fret 4th string, followed by the 3rd string open. Then the index finger on the right hand comes and plays the 2nd string on the 1st fret. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you end on the 5th string, 3rd fret. And that's always the root of the C major chord, is always going to sort of cap off these licks. Again, it caps off everything. So when you put the 2 parts together, it will sound like this. You're jumping in between these strings. And you reset the timing always with that bottom bass string. So all 9 notes, I'll go really slow. I'll play them one at a time. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's that riff. And you just build it up with speed. Alright, and then the next lick to feature from here will sound like this. Alright, so what's happening here is this. Alright, and to execute this lick, which is pretty difficult, it's the timing also at the various stages of this lick It's sped up right in the beginning, and then it kind of slows down as you play into this lick. So what's happening here now is there's a lot happening on the bottom string over the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st frets. And it's basically a chromatic lick happening again with the C major scale. And you kick it off first by playing the bottom string 3rd fret. You play that 3 times, 3 notes here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then this is followed up by this crazy pull-off, chromatic pull-off, which sounds like this. So it's 3 notes happening here. You play the 2nd fret bottom string, then pull off right away into the 1st fret bottom string, followed by the open string bottom string. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the 6 notes are like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he plays this pull off, and then he goes to the 2nd string 1st fret. To hold it, to slow down this lick. Alright, so that's the first 7 notes. Then it's followed up by this part. And that's happening by playing the 3rd string open, 3rd string open, 3rd string open, then 4th fret, 3rd fret 4th string as a 2nd note, then back to the 1st fret 2nd string. So the 3 notes to follow are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3rd string open, 3rd fret 4th string, 1st fret 2nd string. 1, 2, 3, and then when you put it together, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And he's playing this while he's stamping his foot. And you can hear it in the original recording where it's just this constant pulse. Boom, bop, boom, bop. So it's like the percussive element happening with the stamping of your foot is carrying the time of the timing of the song, the time dictation of the song, because these are melodic runs that are not being backed up by any sort of rhythm guitar player. That's what Patton is doing. He's a one-man band essentially. All right, so that's that riff, right? So these notes we just covered. All right, and then this is followed up by strums of the C major chord, activated first by the 5th string 3rd fret. You play the root of the C major chord first, 1, and then it's followed up by these sharp strokes of the C major chord. So when you put it together, it sounds like this. And that wraps up the stanza. So we have these 2 signature licks happening in C, which are going to reappear across the remaining stanzas. So it's good to get it down pat. And so what we covered here was this in this segment. All right, so I'm going to play that a little bit slower. So it's I was broke as I could be. broke as I could be. So those are the two licks there. It is really easy with the tablature. If you have the ebook, it's easier to follow along there than the video in this case. All right, so that wraps up the first full stanza, and he repeats all of these musical ideas against the remaining stanzas. He doesn't differ from anything else. So when you're continuing on, so we covered these two final licks. Goes into the next stanza and he says, they run me from Will Dockery. In the word they, you're still in C, and then he immediately shifts into this melodic run happening on the first string, 8th and 6th frets. So then the next stanza starts off like this. They run me from Will Dockery, Willie Brown's about your job. I guess they run me from Will Dockery. He kicks in there, I guess, at a different word there. So it's they run me from Will Dockery. So in the word from, they run me. Yeah, they run me from Will Dockery. They run me Will Dockery. They run me from Will Dockery. Willie Brown's about your job. And then you continue on. They run me from Will Dockery. Willie Brown's about your job. When I told Papa Charley, I don't want you hanging around my job anymore. So in that, when he moves over into the second stanza, the pause in between this, when I told Papa Charley, I don't want you hanging around my job anymore. There is a more extensive pause there, and he's already starting to sing this longer lyric form. I don't want you hanging around my job anymore. I don't want you hanging around my job anymore. That's something to keep note of as you move forward. Alright, so what we're going to do now is just kind of look at the conclusion, wrap up the song. And the conclusion of the song is it's pretty complicated as well. So we're gonna need some time to break this down. So let's take a little break and we'll finish it off.